Hello guys, welcome back. My name is Nathan, and today we're going to be talking about a huge update on the John Gibson situation with the Anaheim Ducks, all the recent news and trade rumors coming out, and a potential trade that could be coming within the next year. Now, Eric Stevens of The Athletic put out an amazing article in the past couple of days, basically detailing the situation around John Gibson, all the recent trade rumors, and a situation that could lead potentially to a trade within the next year. And we're going to be going through all the details and all the info in today's video. So of course, if you guys want to see all the trade rumors and all the details, make sure you watch till the end to find out everything, and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already to join the Grav Gang. 60% of the people that are watching are not subscribed. If you like hockey and if you like trade rumors, this channel is simply put the place to be. Now, John Gibson potentially having a trade away from the Anaheim Ducks is huge news, not just for Anaheim, but for the rest of the NHL. We go back to when John Gibson was at his peak. This guy was absolutely amazing, and that's why these trade rumors are just so fascinating, and we'll get into the article in a second. But when it comes to John Gibson, we have to provide some context here, because this guy was fantastic. Back in 2018, 2019, 2017, even 2016, this guy was among the best goaltenders in the entire league, and I would say 2019 was one of, if not the best goaltender in the entire National Hockey League. Since then, though, since that 2019 season, it's just not been good whatsoever. 2020 was a rough season for him, and 2021 was sometimes even more inconsistent and lackluster, and he was below a league average, goals saved above expected. His save percentage wasn't good whatsoever, and it just seemed like his fit with the Anaheim Ducks wasn't quite there. And he was only a few years removed from that big contract where he got a $6.4 million cap hit, was looked at as the future of the Anaheim Ducks, and looked at as really the main core piece going forward. A lot has turned bad since then, and John Gibson's play has also suffered. Now, Eric Stevens also makes the point in this Athletic article that John Gibson's play has definitely suffered. He said this: his recent seasons have shown a pattern, a strong couple of weeks before sliding off badly along with the team, and that would go with my eye test as well. When it comes to his stats, since 2019, it hasn't been too pretty. In 2020, he played 51 games where he got a .904 save percentage, a 3 goals against average, and then in 2021, he played 35 games, and even though his stats got in some ways better with the goals against average, being a .298, he also suffered in save percentage as well with a .903 save percentage. There really hasn't been much improvement, and there's been a lot of stagnation in John Gibson's play these past couple of years. But it hasn't been stagnation in great play, it's been stagnation in rather poor play, and a lot of that, yes, is due to the Ducks being as bad as they are, but John Gibson's play has also not been great. But again, if he can get back to that 2019 level, he's easily one of the most valuable players right now in the market. So now we can finally delve deep and sink our teeth into this Athletic article, finally go after the trade rumors and the news that Eric Stevens talks about in this article as well. Now, this was a mailbag article, so he was given questions to answer, and one of the big questions that he actually got was just this straight up: will John Gibson ask to be traded to a contending team? And Eric Stevens came out with some big answers and some big receipts to this question. He says this: as interesting as it might be to get inside Gibson's brain to see how he actually feels about being a member of the Ducks these days, it's impossible to know whether he will ask to be dealt right now. Without question, he has been frustrated with the lack of progress and the losses piling up over the last 3 seasons. Again, frustrated with the lack of progress and the losing over the last 3 seasons. If this is a season in which Anaheim is again among the worst NHL teams and is showing no signs of improvement, then it is fair to wonder if he still wants to be here for the long haul. He wants to win, and he plays a big role in that. So we have a couple more quotes to go after this as well, but that is absolutely huge. Now, we do get confirmation here that he has been frustrated with the Anaheim Ducks direction, with the Anaheim Ducks play as of late, and although they might not mean a trade by itself, that means that John Gibson clearly isn't happy right now with the Anaheim Ducks, isn't happy to be in a rebuild right now. And when it comes to Anaheim's situation, I think a really big factor of this is that Anaheim's not like a team like LA where next year they can start to compete and start to get out of that rebuild. Anaheim's squarely in the middle of it, and they still have a couple more years where they're really going to have some growing pains, and John Gibson might be past his prime by then. That, to me, is what's super interesting about this situation, is that if John Gibson truly wants to win, his best shot right now is nowhere near being the Anaheim Ducks. And if he is going to request a trade, winning a Stanley Cup or being on a contending team would be a much more likely bet than being on the Anaheim Ducks, at least for the next 2 seasons at the very least. Now, a big thing to note when it comes to trade talks is John Gibson's actual contract. He makes $6.4 million for the next 6 seasons, and he's at age 28, he has a modified no-trade clause, which allows him to have a 10-team no-trade clause, so that gives him a little bit of leeway in terms of what he actually wants to go to, and then again, likely a contending team. He'd likely have those 10 teams as teams that just aren't good whatsoever. But what's interesting to me, again, is that he's 28 years old, he's under contract for the next 6 seasons, and although, yes, Gibson could still be good at age 32 or age 31 when the Ducks are actually truly contending, that is still a little bit of a long shot, let's say. And especially for Gibson, again, right now in his prime, if he truly wants to win, I would rather go to a contending team now instead of waiting 3 seasons to have the Anaheim Ducks truly progress into that contender that John Gibson wants to be in. We know how good John Gibson can be, and John Gibson was best when the Ducks were actually a decent team. Now, since it's really no competition at all, John Gibson, just like the rest of the team, has pretty much given up. And you can kind of see that in his chemistry, kind of see that in his body language throughout these last couple of seasons. It just hasn't been nearly as confident or comfortable as prior seasons when he was on top of his game. That's a big part of things, and again, a big reason why I think a trade might be coming. He's 28. He might even be past his prime. Time is ticking for John Gibson, and that might be a reason why he eventually asks for a trade. Now, we have a couple more quotes to go through that I think are super interesting. This next one, of course, coming from Eric Stevens once again, where he said this. Having said all that, I do think he would respond well in a winning environment. I don't know if I would put him on the market unless he asked for a trade, but I'd definitely be in listing mode if the Ducks continue to languish. And that, to me, is another super interesting quote, because we already know that John Gibson is best when a team is actually winning, but if he actually went to a contender, Eric Stevens knows it, and I personally agree with it, I think if he went to a contender, we would see his stats and his numbers start to finally come back up again. He might not get back to that 2018 or 2019 level, but this is still a guy who could be a supreme #1 goalie in the NHL. I think if he went to a team that was a contender and was given the #1 shot, I think John Gibson would get right back to form, especially if it was this next season perhaps. He's still, he's 28 years old. He's still relatively young for goaltenders, and I still think there's a lot left in John Gibson as a #1 starter. His best days are over, but again, if he went to a contender, I think he would get back to that level 110%. He's a winner, he's a competitive player, and I think when he's at his best, he's with a contender. And we've seen again with Anaheim coming down to the depths of the NHL, how John Gibson's play has also suffered. Now, let's just assume for a second that John Gibson, if he was traded to a contending team, would get back to a .920 save percentage level, let's just say. This guy makes $6.4 million. And for a .920 save percentage goalie, there would be a ton of teams that would gladly give up a lot of assets for a player like that. And I feel like there's 4 main teams, maybe even a 5th team as a maybe, that would have heavy interest in John Gibson if he was made available and, of course, ended up asking for a trade. Now, again, we're just assuming that he gets back to a contending level. I think he would. And even though the haul would be pretty large going back to Anaheim, I don't think it would be a huge problem. Anaheim might even be able to retain, maybe $1 million on that salary, even though it is for the next 6 years, and having any retained salary for the 6 years, it kind of sucks. I still think Anaheim could have some flexibility there, especially the rebuild they're currently on. But I think there'd be a lot of teams out there, even at 6.4, that would love to have John Gibson and bring on a goaltender of that talent level. The 4 teams that I mainly see as fits with John Gibson are the Ottawa Senators, the Pittsburgh Penguins, the Carolina Hurricanes, and the Edmonton Oilers. And as my 5th maybe team, I have the Detroit Red Wings. I have the Red Wings as a possibility. Obviously, they got Nedeljkovic in this past offseason, but I still think Gibson will be a great fit in Detroit. But you have 4 other teams that I think could really fit in well. Ottawa's a team that I think could really be interesting. Matt Murray only has a contract for the next 3 seasons, and I could see maybe a Gibson and Murray swap where Anaheim brings in Murray. He's not great, but at least he's some guy to play for them. And it would be a lot of cap space going back to Anaheim, which could maybe bring some more value going back their way. And Ottawa gets Gibson, who I think would be perfect on that team. Pittsburgh, I think, is a pretty logical solution. John Gibson was born in Pittsburgh, grew up a Penguins fan, and I think Pittsburgh could really use that #1 guy. Yes, he makes $6.4 million, and there might need to be some salary retention there, but I think it's a much better option than Jari and DeSmith like they have right now. Then you have the Carolina Hurricanes, who are a pretty obvious fit to me. If they didn't go for Freddie Anderson or Antti Raanta, I think this would be an even better fit, but I think Anaheim could definitely use, again, some more stability in nets, and I think especially John Gibson would probably be fantastic in Carolina. Might even put up the best numbers of his entire career there. And then you have, last but not least, face the Edmonton Oilers, who I think always need goaltending. Mike Smith is their answer for now, but I don't think he's going to be their answer long term. But I think John Gibson at 6.4 would be really good for a guy that could do really, really well there. And that defense, although it is suspect, I do think Gibson could do very, very well on a team like Edmonton that has Stanley Cup hopes. I think there's a lot of opportunities, but again, for John Gibson, there's going to be a ton of interest out there and a ton of teams that will at least want to have him. Now, to me, the main fit that just makes so much sense is the Ottawa Senators, and to me, Ottawa and Anaheim can help themselves so incredibly if they just forget about their Stanley Cup final together and make up for a potential Murray and Gibson swap. Now, this is a very spur-of-the-moment mock trade. Don't take it too seriously, but this is what I kind of could think a Murray and Gibson swap could actually look like. Obviously, going back to the Ottawa Senators would be John Gibson, and Ottawa only adds 150 in terms of money onto their cap, or 150K in terms of their added cap, so it's not that much of an expansion for them. But of course, going back to Anaheim's way would be a pretty big haul since they're getting rid, or since Ottawa's getting rid of the Murray contract and Anaheim's bringing that in. I think that would have to add some more assets on top of that. But just the fact that John Gibson is being traded, I think would add a pretty big haul. I would see going back to the Anaheim Ducks, of course, starting with Matt Murray, a 2022 first-round pick, a 2023 first-round pick, Eric Brandstrom, and Logan Brown. This is what I do see it happen, or actually being as, and especially with Ottawa already reportedly trying to get rid of Eric Brandstrom and especially Logan Brown. I think those are two guys that Ottawa doesn't hold in very high regard right now, who I think both of them could be pretty good in Anaheim. But the first round pick is what I'm thinking Anaheim's mostly looking at. I don't think they'll go for a guy like a Norris or a big prospect on Ottawa. I think they'll look towards first round picks, and even though Ottawa's might not be the best in a couple of years, they still could be pretty valuable, and I think in a John Gibson trade, they're looking for at least one first round pick, but two could definitely work out. And if you're talking about just first round picks in total, that would be the 2 first round picks plus Brandstrom plus Brown. So it's technically 4 first round picks for John Gibson, but again, you're also getting rid of the Matt Murray contract, which for Ottawa would be just huge. Replacing Murray with John Gibson would be perfection. But the John Gibson situation is going to be one that's going to be a lot of fun over this next year. Not a lot of fun for Ducks fans, but could be very, very interesting, especially next offseason, I think. Because Anaheim, there's no chance they're going to be good next year. They're going to be in the dumpster and could even be the worst team in the NHL. And I'm going to say this right now, the Ducks are the worst team in the NHL this next year, which could be a totally possible solution. If they are, I think John Gibson will request a trade and get out of there, especially if they're really, really bad, which could be a possibility with the way the roster is looking like right now. We'll see what happens, but I do think with John Gibson, if I was him, even though obviously the memories in Anaheim are amazing and living in California is not bad whatsoever, at the same time, to go to a contending team while you're still in your prime is extremely important. And I think at this point, a trade in the next couple of years is what I think will be what likely happens. That sentence made no sense, but you get what I mean. But that'll be it for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. If you did enjoy, make sure you hit that subscribe button, hit that like button, and hit that notification bell if you haven't already to get notified on all the new uploads when they go live. Make sure you comment down below. What do you think about the John Gibson situation? Where do you think they could get, or he could get traded to? And what is your John Gibson mock trade for a John Gibson trade this next couple of years? Let me know all your thoughts down in the comments down below. Make sure you share this video with your friends, get the trade rumors out there, and click on this card for all the trade rumor content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan. Have a fantastic day, and I'll see you in the next one. Goodbye.